Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, your friend and ally, Cory Booker, said that an ad that you released, that your campaign released, was nauseating, and it alleged that Romney at Bain Capital was, quote, responsible for job losses at a Kansas City steel mill. Is that your view, that Romney is personally responsible for those job losses? Well, comments from Booker and your former auto czar, Steve Ratner, that have criticized some of these advertisements, call on you to pull back a little bit. And generally, can you give us your sense, three-part, Mr. President, could you give us your sense of just what private equity's role is in stemming job losses as they seek a return on investment for their investors? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I think Cory Booker is an outstanding mayor. He's doing great work in Newark and obviously helping to turn that city around. I think it's important to recognize that this issue is not a, quote, distraction. This is part of the debate that we're going to be having in this election campaign about how do we create an economy where everybody, from top to bottom, folks on Wall Street and folks on Main Street, have a shot at success. And if they're working hard and they're acting responsibly, that they're able to live out the American dream. Now, I think my view of private equity is that it is set up to maximize profits. And that's a healthy part of the free market. That's that's part of the role of a lot of business people. That's not unique to private equity. And as I think my representatives have said repeatedly, and I will say today, I think there are folks who do good work in that area, and there are times where they identify the capacity for the economy to create new jobs or new industries. But understand that their priority is to maximize profits. And that's not always going to be good for communities or businesses or workers. And the reason this is relevant to the campaign is because my opponent, Governor Romney, his main calling card for why he thinks he should be president is his business experience. He's not going out there touting his experience in Massachusetts. He's saying, I'm a business guy and I know how to fix it, and this is his business. And when you're president, as opposed to the head of a private equity firm, then your job is not simply to maximize profits. Your job is to figure out how everybody in the country has a fair shot. Your job is to think about those workers who get laid off and how are we paying for their retraining. Your job is to think about how those communities can start creating new clusters so that they can attract new businesses. Your job as president is to think about how do we set up an equitable tax system so that everybody's paying their fair share, that allows us then to invest in science and technology and infrastructure, all of which are going to help us grow. And so if your main argument for how to grow the economy is, I knew how to make a lot of money for investors, then you're missing what this job is about. It doesn't mean you weren't good at private equity, but that's not what my job is as president. My job is to take into account everybody, not just some. My job is to make sure that the country is growing not just now, but 10 years from now and 20 years from now. And so, to repeat, this is not a distraction. This is what this campaign is going to be about, is what is a strategy for us to move this country forward in a way where everybody can succeed. And that means I've got to think about those workers in that video just as much as I'm thinking about folks who've been much more successful.
Romney personally responsible for those $750.
What I would say is that Mr. Romney is responsible for the proposals he's putting forward for how he says he's going to fix the economy, and if the main basis for him suggesting he can do a better job is his track record as the head of a private equity firm, then both the upsides and the downsides are worth examining. Hold on a second. Alistair Bull.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to take you back to not this summit, but the one you hosted at Camp David a couple of days ago. Whether you feel that you can assure investors that there are contingency plans in place to cope if Greece leaves the euro to prevent a Lehman-like shock to the US and the global economy.
We had an extensive discussion of the situation in the Eurozone, and obviously everybody is keenly interested in getting that issue resolved. I'm not going to speculate on what happens if the Greek choose to exit, because they've got an election and this is going to be an important debate inside of Greece. Everybody who was involved in the G8 summit indicated their desire to see Greece stay in the Eurozone in a way that's consistent with the commitments that have already been made. And I think it's important for Greece, which is a democracy, to work through what their options are at a time of great difficulty. I think we all understand, though, what's at stake. What happens in Greece has an impact here in the United States. Businesses are more hesitant to invest if they see a lot of uncertainty looming across the Atlantic, because they're not sure whether that's going to mean a further global slowdown, and we're already seeing very slow growth rates and, in fact, contraction in a lot of countries in Europe. So we had an extensive discussion about very slow rates and, in fact, contraction in a lot of countries in Europe. So we had an extensive discussion about how do we strengthen the European project generally in a way that does not harm world economic growth, but instead moves it forward. And I've been clear, I think, in not just this week, but over the last 2 years about what I think needs to be done. We've got to put in place firewalls that ensure that countries outside of Greece that are doing the right thing aren't harmed just because markets are skittish and nervous. We've got to make sure that banks are recapitalized in Europe so that investors have confidence. And we've got to make sure that there is a growth strategy to go alongside the need for fiscal discipline, as well as a monetary policy that is promoting the capacity of countries like a Spain or an Italy that have put in place some very tough targets and some very tough policies to also offer their constituencies a prospect for the economy improving, job growth increasing, incomes expanding, even if it may take a little bit of time. And the good news was you saw a consensus across the board, from newly elected President Hollande to Chancellor Merkel to other members of the European community, that balanced approach is what's needed right now. They're going to be meeting this week to try to advance those discussions further. We've offered to be there for consultation, to provide any technical assistance and work through some of these ideas in terms of how we can stabilize the markets there. Ultimately, what I think is most important is that Europe recognizes this euro project involves more than just a currency. It means that there's got to be some more effective coordination on the fiscal and the monetary side and on the growth agenda. And I think that there was strong intent there to move in that direction. Of course, they've got 17 countries that have to agree to every step they take. So, I think about my one Congress. Then I start thinking about 17 Congresses, and I start getting a little bit of a headache. It's going to be challenging for them. The last point I'll make is I do sense greater urgency now than perhaps existed 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago. And keep in mind, just for folks here in the States, when we look backwards at our response in 2008 and 2009, there was some criticism because we had to make a bunch of tough political decisions. In fact, there's still criticism about some of the decisions we made. But one of the things we were able to do was to act forcefully to solve a lot of these problems early, which is why credit markets that were locked up started loosening up again. That's why businesses started investing again. That's why we've seen job growth of over 4 million jobs over the last 2 years. That's why corporations are making money. And that's why we've seen strong economic growth for a long time. And so acting forcefully rather than in small bite-sized pieces and increments, I think ends up being a better approach, even though obviously we're still going through challenges ourselves. I mean, some of these issues are ones that built up over decades.